think back to math class for a moment. Did you ever feel that disconnect?
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting there trying to absorb facts, solve problems, maybe just, copying what was on the board.
Right.
But that deeper understanding, the why, it often felt a bit elusive.
Yeah, or maybe you were the opposite. Right, you got it quickly, but felt held back.
Exactly. And for decades, that traditional setup has really been the norm. But what if?
Yeah.
What if there's a movement trying to change that?
A movement in math education aiming to fundamentally transform how students engage with math.
And more importantly, how they actually think.
That's precisely what we're diving into today. It's called Building Thinking Classrooms, or BTC for short.
Right. And it's an approach that's, well, it's getting a lot of attention. It promises to challenge the very foundations of how we learn and teach math.
Yeah, it really does.
So our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack this whole methodology. We're going to explore its core principles, look at how it actually works in real classrooms.
And then, crucially, dig into the debates around it, because there are strong debates about its effectiveness.
Definitely. We've pulled from, well, a whole stack of sources: the founder's research, a math professor's actual hands-on experience.
Academic studies, too, on student psychology, plus some pretty spirited online discussions from teachers.
All to help you understand what this BTC thing really means for learning math.
Okay, so where do we start? The beginning seems right.
Let's jump right in. This whole approach started with Peter Liljedahl. He's a professor of education.
And he spent, 15 years? Deep inside K-12 math classrooms, about 40 of them.
Yeah, a long time. And what he saw was, well, pretty stark. In those traditional settings, he found something like 80% of students weren't actually engaged in real mathematical thinking.
80%. And maybe even more surprising, 50% were essentially just mimicking, copying examples without really understanding.
Exactly. So BTC, his entire framework, is designed specifically to disrupt those norms, to shake things up.
It's such an insightful starting point, isn't it? Realizing that if you want students to think, you actually have to change the environment, not just, tweak the lesson plan.
Right.
He identified, I think, 14 principles in total. But many teachers, like Professor Kelly Spoon, who we'll talk about later, they really point to two as the big catalysts, the real game changers.
Okay, these are the two we really need to get our heads around then. Let's start with the first one. It sounds simple, but it seems to really shake up the social side of the classroom.
Visibly randomized groups, VRG.
VRG. Okay, what's the core idea?
It's straightforward, really. Students get randomly assigned to small groups, ideally groups of 3.
Randomly. How?
Oh, teachers use simple things like shuffling a deck of cards. The key is that it's random, and everyone sees it's random, visibly random.
Ah, okay. And the power in that randomness. Yeah. It's significant.
Liljedahl's research suggests it really is. It fosters genuine inclusivity. It breaks down those cliques,
Right, students can't just pair up with their friends or the person they think is smartest.
Exactly. And that seems to boost active participation for everyone. It encourages students to rely on each other for help.
Instead of just putting their hand up for the teacher all the time.
Yeah. And it gets rid of those subtle biases teachers sometimes have when they make groups themselves.
So what are the results? What do teachers actually see happening?
Well, the observed benefits are pretty compelling. Students seem to become more okay with working with anyone. Those social divides start to shrink. And knowledge just moves more freely between students. It creates this sort of collective intelligence in the room.
Less reliance on the teacher then.
Definitely. And teachers report more enthusiasm, more engagement in the actual tasks.
Okay, that's VRG. Building on that idea of collective work, what's the second big game changer? This one's about the physical space, right?
Right. Vertical non-permanent surfaces, VNPS.
Vertical non-permanent surfaces. Okay, paint a picture for us.
Imagine students standing up, working together on problems, but on whiteboards. Or maybe blackboards, even big windows sometimes. Erasable surfaces.
Standing up. Not sitting at desks.
Standing up. And often, here's a key detail, there's only one marker per group.
One marker. Why's that?
It forces discussion. The person holding the marker needs input from the others. They have to agree on what to write.
Ah, clever. So you can't just have one person do all the work while the others watch.
Precisely.
Right.
And the finding here was pretty striking. Liljedahl's research saw this dramatically increases engagement and, importantly, mathematical thinking.
They start faster and stick with problems longer.
Yeah, they persevere more when they're up at a board.
Why do you think that is? What's the theory?
Well, there seem to be a few factors. First, just plain visibility. Everyone can see the work, the teacher, other groups.
So the teacher can jump in easily with feedback,
Yeah.
and groups can see what others are trying.
Exactly. It helps ideas move around the room. That's the second point. Mobility. Standing just gives people more energy, right?
Yeah.
And they can easily walk over and look at another group's approach.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
A really crucial one is what they call rough draft thinking.
Rough draft thinking.
Yeah, because the surface is non-permanent erasable, it lowers the stakes. You're less afraid of making a mistake if you can just wipe it away and try again.
Instead of messing up your neat notebook page.
Exactly. So it encourages more experimentation, trying things out.
Interesting. Anything else about VMPS?
One more thing Liv Riddell found in interviews. Reduced anonymity. Students feel less anonymous, less hidden when they're standing at a whiteboard compared to sitting at a desk.
And feeling less anonymous means?
Well, less disengagement. You're kind of more accountable, more present when your thinking is right there for others to see and you're actively working with your group.
Okay, so we've got the core principles. Physically randomized groups and vertical non-permanent surfaces. VRG and VMPS.
Yep, those are the big two often highlighted.
But the real test, as always, is how this stuff actually plays out in a real classroom day to day.
Absolutely. Theory is one thing, practice is another.
So for a really vivid example, let's look at Kelly Spoon. She's a professor of mathematics at San Diego Mesa College.
Right, and she uses these BTC methods in her supported calculus classes. Her experience really brings it to life.
So walk us through what a typical lesson might look like for her.
Okay. Sometimes she might start with a short mini lecture, maybe just for familiarity with a concept, but often, not always, especially if the previous day's work kind of sets the stage.
So less traditional lecturing overall.
Generally, yes. Then she moves into a problem sequence. She'll project a series of problems, usually ordered by increasing difficulty.
And these aren't just drill problems, right?
No, they're designed to make students grapple with foundational concepts needed for calculus, like maybe factoring or simplifying complex fractions. The goal is building thinking, building understanding.
Got it. Then the groups come in.
Yep, this is where VRG happens. Every day. Kelly uses that deck of cards method. She takes out a suit so the numbers match her class size, say 36 students.
And how do they know where to go?
The suit she removed tells them which group location to go to. And it's new groups, randomly assigned every class, sometimes even more often if needed.
Wow, okay, so constantly mixing it up. Then they head to the boards.
Straight to the VNPS, the vertical whiteboards in her case. And remember, just one marker per group.
Right, forcing that collaboration.
Exactly. The student with the marker really needs the other's input. They have to talk it through.
So what's Kelly doing while all this is happening? What's the teacher's role now?
It shifts dramatically. She's not the lecturer, she's a facilitator. She walks around asking what she calls keep thinking questions.
Like what?
Things like, how could you check if that answer is right? Or what does that 72 actually tell us in this context? She's prompting, not giving answers.
Nudging them along.
Yeah, giving judicious hints when a group is truly stuck. Encouraging groups to look at what other groups are doing. She even has this funny routine, like if groups keep making the same algebra mistake, she'll yell, "You peeled a puppy?"
No way.
Yeah, and apparently it gets everyone scrambling to check their work and fix it. It's about creating awareness in a lighthearted way.
That's memorable. Okay, so after they've worked through some problems.
Then there's usually a class debrief, and this is key. She references the work still visible on the whiteboards.
Using their actual work.
Right. To build strategies together, highlight different valid approaches, address common misunderstandings. It really leverages that shared visibility.
It sounds really dynamic. Did you discover anything unexpected when implementing this?
Yes, actually. One really interesting thing was about note-taking.
Oh, how so?
Well, initially, she'd have students work on the boards and then go back to their seats to fill in some skeletal notes she provided.
Okay, that sounds logical. Consolidate the learning.
You'd think so, but she found that when they went back to the notes, they often just stalled. Or they'd kind of fake it, waiting for her to just give them the final answer to write down.
So it wasn't working as intended.
She realized it was unintentionally recreating that old I do, we do, you do pattern. It was pulling them out of the thinking mode she'd just established at the boards.
Wow, so it disrupted the very environment she was trying to build.
Exactly. She described it as something she's still troubleshooting, trying to figure out the best way to handle consolidation without killing the thinking vibe.
That's a really critical insight, isn't it? It shows how deep those traditional habits run.
For both students and teachers, yeah. Implementing BTC isn't just following steps, it's a constant process of reflection and adjustment.
Recognizing where old patterns might sneak back in.
Absolutely. It really highlights how the classroom structure itself influences behavior.
So, thinking about student behavior and outcomes, what does the research, like Lil Jidal's original study, say happened for the students themselves?
Well, one clear observation from teachers, like in Mrs. Carley's classroom that Lil Jidal studied, was a noticeable decrease in questions directed at the teacher.
Because they were relying more on their groups.
Exactly. They were figuring things out together more often.
And engagement, did that change?
Hugely, according to the reports. There's this student, Jasmine, who apparently tried to game the random groups at first.
Trying to get with her friends.
Probably. But later she said she loved the class, noting she was never bored. And her attendance and punctuality shot up. Absences dropped from like 3.2 to 1.6 per term, lates from 6.7 down to 2.2.
Wow, that's a concrete difference.
Yeah, and other students made comments like, "You actually need to think in this class," or "You really have to collaborate." They called it hard work, but in a good way.
That good way part sounds key. It's challenging but rewarding. What about the social aspect? Did random groups help break down barriers?
Lilja Chadal observed exactly that in Mrs. Carley's room. He saw social divides, for instance, between Asian and Caucasian students who previously didn't mix much, just sort of dissolve.
Really?
Yeah, the class became more cohesive. Students got comfortable working with pretty much anyone. One student, Samantha, mentioned she wasn't away from her friends, but because they were busy working at the boards, there wasn't much time to just socialize anyway. The focus shifted.
Interesting. Okay, so engagement up, reliance on teacher down, social barriers reduced. What about student confidence, their belief in their own ability?
That's a crucial piece, isn't it? Self-efficacy.
Yeah. Is there research on that specifically within BTC?
There is. Beth Baldwin did her master's thesis on this. She studied 104 grade 11 and 12 math students in a thinking classroom.
And what was she looking for?
She explored the relationship between self-efficacy, belief in your own ability, and group efficacy, belief in the group's combined ability.
Okay, individual versus collective confidence. What did she find?
A really significant finding. The thinking classroom model seems to foster more positive group efficacy, and interestingly, that boost in group confidence can, over time, lead to more positive self-efficacy too.
So feeling confident in the group can actually make you feel more confident in yourself later on.
It appears so. When they talked about specific math content, students reported on average about 7.5% higher confidence in their group's ability compared to their own individual ability.
That suggests a real strength in numbers feeling.
Definitely. Baldwin identified that exact phenomenon. 7 out of the 11 students she interviewed talked about how group work added confidence and clarification.
Who were some of these students?
Names like James, Laura, Teresa, Bill. They felt having diverse perspectives and just a wider knowledge base in the group helped them get to the right answers and, importantly, helped reduce their math anxiety.
Oh, that's huge. Reducing math anxiety.
Yeah, students like Alex, Amy, Sarah, Tina mentioned that specifically. And these students often describe the group work simply as fun.
Interesting. But was it positive for everyone? What about students who were already pretty confident in math?
That's where Baldwin found something she called the high ability paradox.
Paradox. How so?
Well, 4 of the interviewed students, typically those who already had high math ability and high self-efficacy, sometimes felt the group work actually slowed them down.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
Frustrating if you feel you know the answer.
Right. Students like Alan, John, Michelle expressed feeling frustrated sometimes, maybe feeling like they always ended up being the group leader or having to compromise their own way of thinking to match the group.
That's a really important nuance. So this high ability paradox, is there a way to sort of manage that, mitigate the frustration for those students while still getting the benefits of group work? Or is it just an inherent trade-off?
That's a fantastic question, and honestly, it's something educators using BTC really grapple with.
Yeah.
Some teachers try things like having specific extension problems ready for groups or individuals who finish early, or maybe assigning a high flyer a temporary role as a floating expert to help other groups.
Okay, so there are strategies.
There are, but you're right, balancing that individual pace and need for challenge with the collaborative structure, it's a constant tightrope walk. And it's exactly why critics often jump on these kinds of models, arguing they aren't one size fits all.
Which leads us perfectly into the next segment, right? The counter-arguments.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is, shall we say, fully on board with BTC.
Far from it. This approach has attracted some really strong criticism, very vocal critics.
Okay, let's hear it. Who are the main critics and what are they saying?
Well, one prominent voice is Dr. Greg Ashman. He's a school leader in Australia and an author.
And his take?
He doesn't mince words. He calls BTC a dangerous fad.
Dangerous. Wow. Why?
He argues it lacks a credible evidence base, and fundamentally he believes it's rooted in what he calls ineffective discovery learning.
Discovery learning,
Yeah.
where students figure things out mostly on their own.
Yeah, often with minimal direct guidance. Ashman contrasts that sharply with explicit teaching, where concepts are clearly explained and modeled by the teacher, which he argues has much stronger evidence for achieving mastery, especially for foundational skills.
So he sees BTC's methods, the whiteboards, the random cards.
As bells and whistles, basically window dressing on an old, flawed idea, learning just by solving problems. He thinks it can actually overwhelm students, especially if they lack foundational knowledge.
Did he mention anything else?
He also pointed out the cost. BTC workshops aren't cheap. He cited figures around $1,700, $1,800.
Okay, that's a practical concern too. Any other major critics?
Anna Stoke, a Canadian math professor, has also been very critical.
And her view?
Even sharper, perhaps. She's reportedly dismissed BTC as a scam and said its research articles have no substance. She essentially lumps it in with what she calls trendy nonsense in education.
Wow, okay. Dangerous fad, scam, trendy nonsense.
Yeah.
Those are some seriously strong words from Ashman and Stoke. It almost feels like we're talking about two totally different things here.
It does, doesn't it?
How do we even begin to reconcile views that are that polarized?
It's tough, but I think it actually highlights a much bigger ongoing tension in education, one that goes way beyond just BTC. It's that fundamental disagreement over the best way to teach. Is it primarily through direct instruction, laying everything out clearly, or is it better to create environments where students discover and construct knowledge more independently?
And BTC falls squarely into that second camp, the discovery constructivist side.
For its supporters, yes. And for critics like Ashman, that's precisely its biggest weakness, especially when it comes to learning core skills and procedures efficiently.
Okay. Are these criticisms just coming from academics, or are teachers raising concerns too?
No, these sentiments definitely get echoed by some teachers on the ground. You see it in online forums, like on Reddit, for example.
What are they saying there?
Some teachers call the data supporting BTC anecdotal. They worry there's too much focus on engagement, which looks good over measurable actual achievement.
A feeling good versus actually learning concern.
Kind of. And some report hearing students say things like, our teachers don't even teach us anymore, feeling they still need that direct instruction, especially for brand new concepts.
That's a significant student perception if it's widespread.
It is. Others have dug into the research cited by Lil Jadal and pointed out things like small sample sizes.
Wow.
One key study apparently only had 18 students and a lack of control groups in some of the research.
Which, from a research standpoint, definitely raises valid questions about how robust the evidence really is.
Right. It does. So while you have this undeniable enthusiasm and positive reporting from many practitioners like Kelly Spoon, you also have these critical voices really questioning the depth and rigor of the empirical claims, especially when compared to other teaching methods that might have decades of large-scale research behind them.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question, really. Where does that leave us? Is BTC the future, a revolution in math ed? Or is it just another trend that will eventually fade?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It seems like many educators, maybe even some who were initially skeptical, are kind of landing somewhere in the middle.
I think that's fair to say. Many seem to view BTC not as a complete replacement for everything else, but as one valuable tool in the toolbox.
Another approach to draw on when appropriate.
Precisely. It connects to that ongoing debate in math education, teaching the why, the conceptual understanding, versus teaching the how, the procedural fluency.
Right. Conceptual versus procedural.
And a lot of teachers seem to find BTC, especially the group work and problem-solving aspect, really effective for building that deeper conceptual why. Then they might switch to more traditional methods, maybe direct instruction or individual practice, to solidify the procedural how.
So it's about strategic integration, not necessarily replacing everything.
That seems to be a common way practitioners are navigating it, finding the balance.
And we saw earlier, even student preference depends on the task, right?
Absolutely. Remember Baldwin's study. All students, regardless of their self-efficacy, tended to prefer group work for things like complex word problems or tasks that felt unfamiliar or open-ended.
Because those need more unpacking, more perspectives.
Exactly. But those same high self-efficacy students, they often preferred working alone for more straightforward algorithmic stuff like solve for X problems.
So the type of problem dramatically changes how confident a student feels and whether they want to collaborate,
Yeah, it really underscores that context matters a lot.
which again points to the teacher's role being incredibly important but different.
Hugely different. In a thinking classroom, the teacher isn't just the knower dispensing information. They're a facilitator, a strategist.
It requires different skills.
Totally. Different planning, choosing the right kinds of problems, different monitoring skills, knowing when to intervene with a hint versus letting them struggle productively, different differentiation tactics, maybe directing one group to look at another's board or pulling a small group aside for a quick mini lesson if they're all stuck on the same thing. It's very dynamic.
There was also a point about framing tasks as puzzles. How does that fit in?
Right. Research suggests that just framing a task as a puzzle rather than just a problem can significantly boost motivation and engagement.
Why is that?
It seems to tap into something called the attractiveness of uncertainty. There's a bit of mystery, a challenge to be unlocked, and successfully solving it can apparently trigger a dopamine release.
The brain's reward chemical.
Exactly. So making math feel like puzzle solving can make it more inherently engaging and rewarding for students. It gets them into that state of flow, hopefully.
Okay, so putting all these pieces together as we sort of wrap up this deep dive, what's the big picture?
Well, building thinking classrooms, BTC, it's clearly a complex and multifaceted thing. It's not simple.
We've definitely seen compelling evidence, or at least strong arguments and experiences, suggesting it has a really positive impact on student engagement, on breaking down social barriers, even on building confidence, especially group confidence.
Yeah, and it's backed by passionate educators like Kelly Spoon who see real results in their classrooms. And yet it faces significant skepticism. Critics like Ashman and Stoke raise serious questions about the strength of its research base, its reliance on discovery learning principles, and whether it's truly suitable for all students and all types of mathematical learning.
Those concerns about anecdotal evidence versus rigorous proof and engagement versus actual measured achievement, they're hard to ignore.
They are. They point to that core tension in educational philosophy.
So maybe the deepest insight here isn't about whether BTC is the single answer.
Perhaps not. Perhaps the true thinking classroom, whatever you call it, isn't about rigidly sticking to one methodology, BTC or any other.
But rather about the teacher's ability to be agile, to adapt.
Exactly. To skillfully blend different approaches. To respect that students learn differently and have different needs at different times. To constantly ask, what does this student or this group need right now to take the next step in their understanding?
So, final thought for you, the listener. How might you, in your own context, whether it's learning, teaching, or managing teams, advocate for or use practices that genuinely encourage critical thinking and collaboration?
While at the same time always respecting individual differences and needs, it's maybe not about finding the one perfect path, but about building a flexible, responsive environment where everyone, truly, has the opportunity to think deeply and learn effectively.